Hello, this is Lindsay Drangeid, and this is my week 7 assignment where we are taking a little bit deeper look into cognitive biases. So I have chosen cognitive dissonance, and actually something that fits under it as a subset, but we'll start with this. Basic definition is the perception of contradictory information and the mental toll of it. This here is a little bit fuller description from the APA Dictionary of Psychology. I won't read it to you. What I'm really looking at is effort justification, which is, again, a subset of cognitive dissonance. Effort justification is a person's tendency to attribute greater value to an outcome if they had to put effort into achieving it. This can result in more value being applied to an outcome than it actually has. And once again, I've included a fuller description um, from the American Psychological Association. Some potential problems that are associated with this effort justification. I was looking at this article entitled The Effort Paradox, and I thought these two passages were a pretty good description of potential problems. In the first paragraph, it's talking about the fact that people are going to reach a limit, that if they no longer see a perceived value of extra effort, they're probably not going to put that effort in. Um, and if there's no reward for that extra effort. In the second little miniature paragraph, there um, was an interesting thing that I hadn't thought about, but uh, that there is actually less value um, ascribed to a difficult task, what is referred to as an effortful task, is if they did it because of incentives. Um, I, I wouldn't have thought about that connection, but that's what literature indicates. So, but it turns out that people um, put their effort up to the incentive rather than whether or not they wanted to do the task. So they didn't put as much value into it. So some potential effects on both educational research and professional practice. When looking at educational research, it's a bit of the same refrain, got to keep it in mind. uh, it makes designing a study seem like an almost impossible task. But if you are designing a study and you're having subjects perform some kind of task, you'd have to make sure that they're they're doing the task for the reasons you wanted. Um, or if all you're doing is observing something that's already going on, and or perhaps the study can't be developed in an alternate method, you definitely would have to include that in your analysis and conclusions. Uh, on a more day-to-day level, as an instructor, you're designing tasks, assignments. Um, so you'd have to make sure that the students are seeing value beyond just the effort, because otherwise they're going to be attacking things kind of robotically, something that I see with some of my students. And finally, a couple of real life examples, really thinking in terms of professional practice. I try to be try to keep all these things in a pretty pragmatic context. And since I don't do lots of research, but I teach, that's where I lean towards. This is something I've seen it happens regularly, not necessarily often, but where students just will say, I put so much effort into this, but they got an A minus and they really want an A. But I worked so hard. Well, you didn't, there were some pretty clearly defined standards and you didn't meet up to them. This speaks to a much larger problem at play where kids lose their minds. I mean, I've had kids in tears over an A minus on a quarter grade. It's that is a different can of worms. In a second place, I have definitely seen in myself is creating. I don't even call it homework anymore. I call it practice problems because that's really how it needs to be viewed, not just work. But when I was brand new, I tend to, for lack of any kind of skill or experience, I tended to assign stuff so that it was hard. And then even my best students would sort of give up because they just couldn't see the value in it. I've gotten better. That is what I've got to say about that.